This is Weather or Not.
All right, Thursday edition of Weather or Not, and it is a wintry version of Weather or Not as we continue to watch a lot of winter weather in a lot of spots that don't typically see a lot of winter weather.
Yeah, and the cold is already set up. We were talking about how the coldest air has to be in place for the deep south. Certainly plenty of it. And as we transition now into our first alert weather day, we're going to really start to see some video and photos even tomorrow morning that are going to come out from areas that haven't seen snow and ice in quite a while.
Yeah, let's take you all across the deep south. And yeah, you don't usually see this very often. We've basically got winter storm watches, warnings, or winter weather advisories from extreme eastern North Carolina all the way back through Texas and New Mexico. Those winter storm warnings now for places like Dallas, Shreveport, Little Rock, up into Memphis, Birmingham. I think by the time the day is done, Atlanta, Clemson, Greenville, Charlotte, all probably going under those winter storm warnings. And we're likely going to see those winter weather advisories expanded at least into parts of our PD counties as we work our way into this evening.
Yeah, and let's go ahead and show you what this future radar looks like, because a really interesting trend that's taking place here is there's a lot more snow as we go into the forecast tonight for areas even in Arkansas and Tennessee. But as this works its way into the forecast for tomorrow, we start to get a little bit more of a warm nose creeping in, and it turns into a wintry mess as it works its way into the Carolinas.
And that's going to be kind of a signal of this storm. There's going to be plenty of rain. There's going to be some decent snow on the north side, but of course that in between is always a tricky part. This is as we head into midnight tonight, early tomorrow morning. You can see that snow coming down there across Tennessee. You can see that thin line of pink kind of starts to grow a little bit as it starts to work its way into parts of Mississippi, into Alabama. But you always look usually on sort of that transition line between rain and ice and snow. It's just north of that where you can crank out some heavy snow. And I think some spots there across parts of Tennessee, North Alabama, going to get a good shellacking.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot. And I think double-digit snowfall totals for some areas are not out of the question here as we go into the forecast. You'll even notice there in the middle of Tennessee as we're going through Friday morning, they'll transition into a heavier snow. But look how all of that just pivots its way to the east here, and you'll look at a decent amount of snow for now southern Kentucky. That transitions even into portions of northern Georgia, where they'll be talking about ice as well for Atlanta. The question is, what does that look like as we go into the afternoon tomorrow? Because as we pause this in the middle of the day, you'll notice that ice starting to creep a little further north.
Yeah, Atlanta, a lot like a lot of the other big cities that this storm is impacting, is literally right on the line. Dallas is on the line. Birmingham is on the line, Atlanta is on the line, Charlotte's on the line, Raleigh's on the line between a decent snow or too much ice. It's that really fine line. Atlanta likely going to see the snow probably beginning Friday as the morning commute is kind of wrapping up. And I think by midday, Atlanta is probably in a snow and sleet mix that eventually transitions over to sleet and freezing rain. And then as we head into tomorrow evening, you can see the storm beginning to impact us here in the Carolinas. And that's what we're going to get into next, is kind of those local impacts as that storm begins to pull out of here, likely pretty quickly. I think we're back into sunshine as we head into Saturday afternoon.
I was going to say, the new data coming in, it's been this way over the past 12, 24 hours. We'll see sunshine quickly come back in here, but check out how this ice and sleet, I want to reiterate that too. It's not all going to be freezing rain. There will be a good amount of sleet in this. You'll see that shaded there in the pink, but look at that hefty snow band, basically from Memphis all the way south of Nashville and into the Smokies. There's going to be some big time snow winters in areas that haven't seen snow, like we said, in some years. And then, yeah, a tricky forecast as you go into the middle there near Charlotte, Clemson, the upstate. They'll get some snow, but they'll even get mixed in with some of that wintry mix potentially toward the end of the system as that warm nose comes into the Carolinas.
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk about the Carolinas, because of course that's where we are and that's where we want to focus on some of those impacts. And you can see those watches and warnings. Winter storm watches, just about all of North Carolina, the western half of South Carolina. A lot of those probably going to be upgraded to warnings. I think we'll probably see winter weather advisories issued for our inland counties later tonight.
Yeah, and that's typically what we'll do, and we'll have that for travel impacts. Obviously, doesn't mean we're going to be talking about a crippling system, but certainly some impacts that will happen. So let's walk you through with a little bit more of a local scale here, and you notice how that warm nose of that rain continues to move its way into the area, and that's what's going to be a key component for us in Horry County. In fact, you'll notice the snow works its way through the upstate, pivots its way into Charlotte, and then eventually we start to see that time frame. Somewhere around 4, 5, 6 o'clock, we'll start to get that sleet line to kind of recede its way up toward the PD. But meanwhile, snow dumps in Charlotte across the evening commute.
Our amazing weather producer for the show forgot to put in the pause point. So I'm backing up here for you because we kind of ran through that whole thing. But let's take you into 5 o'clock tomorrow evening. Again, that's when things kind of start to go downhill, starting as primarily snow, as you were mentioning there in Charlotte. And we've also been talking about that pink across our area as we've been discussing through the day. I think a lot of that, especially initially early on in the storm, is going to be sleet. Got a lot of dry air above us, a lot of dry air and a little bit of warm air. Snowflake falls, melts, refreezes, sleet.
Yeah, and you'll certainly hear the ping. I think we could even hear that here in Horry and Georgetown briefly before we start to transition to rain. Let's take you a little bit more here as we go into the evening, because we'll move this forward, and as we head closer to 8, 9 o'clock, notice how quickly, in the matter of a couple of hours, we start to see that cold rain work in. It's just enough warmth here at the surface that will transition us into that warm rain, basically I-95 south.
Yeah.
I know we keep saying I-95, but it's the easiest way to think about it for our region. And then you'll notice snow still continues across western North Carolina and even Charlotte.
And while there's not going to be any travel issues, can we talk about how gross it's going to be here at the beaches
Disgusting.
Friday night? It's probably going to be 35 and pouring rain at times.
It's also going to be unfortunate and depressing because we were so close.
So close.
But yet so far away as well.
So we'll take this through about midnight. And again, you can very clearly see I-95, sort of that dividing line, as we've been saying, between rain and freezing rain or sleet there across the PD. You can see the back end still holding on to that snow versus sleet and ice transition from Charlotte up to I-85. We're dealing with I-95. I-85 is sort of going to be the dividing line between more significant snow north of there and more significant ice south of there.
Yeah, and of course, as we continue this on, like we mentioned earlier, we're going to see this actually move out of here pretty quickly. It would not shock me if everything is out of here by 3, 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
You'll wake up under cloud cover Saturday, but temperatures are going to be warm enough as we go through Saturday morning to where if there are any improvements, it's probably in a shaded area where you might have some slick spots.
Yep.
But most of the roads should be clear and good to go for Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah, so let's talk about that as far as the amounts that we're looking at and as far as how things are going to unfold. Maybe you're heading to Columbia on Friday. It's cold in the morning, it's cloudy. Temperatures briefly get above freezing by a couple of degrees, but then notice they start slipping back down as we see that wintry mix coming in heading into tomorrow evening.
Yeah, and I've basically told everyone that we've been mentioning if you have to go north, basically leave either tonight, tomorrow morning, and get to where you need to get. Doesn't mean you're going to be locked in for the weekend, but we are going to be talking about the snowfall and the ice for areas Midland. Look at some of the new totals coming in here, and I'm still trying to look at some of it. Charlotte, 1.5 inches.
That'll break their snow drought. That's
that
all
will
it takes.
break it.
Yeah, it's over a 2-year snow drought there in Charlotte, so the snow lovers there will be happy. These are fun totals as far as Carolinas go. It's not crippling snowstorm, but it's enough to make it look really pretty and make the snow lovers happy. A general, I think, 1 to 3 for most of North Carolina, north and west of I-85. You get some higher amounts in the mountains. And then, of course, notice 0 snow accumulation across the PD. I think if we get any quote-unquote accumulation, it's probably just going to be a coating of sleet.
And let's keep in mind, too, it doesn't cause many inches of snow to create problems here, and I think we will certainly have our fair share of that, whether it's the ice or even the sleet. So you're looking up there, the snow, all snow, totals ranging 3 to 4 as you go up into Johnson City and Asheville, maybe even some 5 to 6 inch totals up there in the mountains. We'll have to keep an eye on that. Of course, as we continue to look ahead and talk about those impacts, you'll notice future radar shows what we were showing with that heaviest band of snow coming in and staying far enough to our north. Now, I do think there could be the same way we have it here at the beaches. Sleet opportunity, 2 hours, maybe even just an hour. Same thing for the PD with snow early on if you're going to see it.
Yeah, I think if anywhere in our area sees snow, it's mainly north and west of I-95, and even if it does snow, it's going to be light. It's probably going to be mixed with sleet. Not really going to accumulate unless you get a burst, and even if it does accumulate in any spots in the PD, it's going to be a dusting at most, and most of that is going to be sleet. We'll take this into the evening rush and dinner time for Friday. Still could be some sleet in interior Horry County into the PD. By that point, we're just a cold, miserable rain here across the Grand Strand.
And keep in mind, as we continue this, any cold rain that moves inland across portions that maybe pick up on a little bit of sleet, it's gone. Get a picture while you have it, because that cold rain takes over. You'll lose anything you have on the ground in inland Horry County. But like we mentioned, closer to 9, 10 o'clock, that still continues to add up with sleet and freezing rain. And then we move this forward into the overnight, eventually starting to see those problems slowly come to an end. I think midnight on either side of that.
Yeah.
Going to be about when we start to calm things down a little bit as dry air works in.
Yeah, but again, you can very clearly see I-95 as that dividing line there across the PD. West of there, the potential for some issues. East of there, more of just a novelty sort of minor event. Let's take you in a little bit closer, and another way to visualize that timeline, I think as we get into 2 to 3 o'clock, again, some flurries and some light sleet begin to move in. That gradually transitions to mainly sleet and some light freezing rain through sunset through about midnight. And then just that cold rain, especially east of I-95, may hold on to freezing rain west of I-95 a little bit longer.
Yeah, and as we continue to walk you through, what does that mean for your travel? Well, if you were to overlay that, I think we'll see a couple minor impacts, especially maybe bridges, overpasses. Not to mention, if it is sleet and it is accumulating, you might have a nice coating of sleet there inland. Overall, though, this isn't going to be your typical ice storm that we're talking about. All the decent ice totals, when I mean decent, 1/4 of an inch, going to be located up in the Midlands, up through portions as you work toward the upstate. For us, a nice glaze, and even then, I still feel like a lot of sleet is going to be in here, and we'll have to really fine-tune that, but enough to create some slick spots and some travel headaches.
And when you're talking about a glaze of ice, even up to 1/10 of an inch of ice, that's going to be some icicles hanging off your mailbox. That's going to be, and by icicles, I mean little icicles, hanging off your mailbox.
Not ice storm, yeah.
You know, hanging off your deck railing, things like that. A little glaze on some trees. You're not going to see the amounts of ice that bring down power lines. There's just not enough moisture with this system. It's not going to last long enough, and temperatures aren't going to stay cold enough to give us a significant ice storm, which at least in this part of the country, once you start getting to around 1/4 of an inch, that's when things start to get serious as far as power outages. It takes 1/4 of an inch for tree limbs to start to break.
Yeah, 1/4 of an inch, and what do we say, 500 pounds?
1/4 of an inch of ice adds 500 pounds of weight to trees and power lines. For reference, 1.5 inches of ice in Marion County back in 2014. Ooh. Yeah, nothing like that.
No way at all. Let's go ahead and take it to where at least I'm going to be situated, and that's the coast. Yeah, a wet, cold rain. We're going to be lucky, and I'm going to be running out if I hear the sleet, the pinging sleet, because that's about all we'll get. Light sleet, if anything. Dry air is going to be around for that time frame, too. This system's going to have to overcome some dry air before it gets going, but some light sleet from here and there, and then gradually turning to that cold rain, and it's a cold rain indeed as we go into the forecast there for areas like Conway and Aner. Once again, winter weather fans, Horry and Georgetown County not looking the best. Let's continue our winter weather coverage here, and we want you to check this out. A lot of you ask about the bridges and the overpasses and why they're the first to go in a situation like a winter storm. Meteorologist Matt Bullock has more on that.
You've seen signs like this on the roadways, bridge ices before road. But why do bridges freeze first? And let me explain why. Most roads lose heat evenly. However, unlike most roads where they have the ground to insulate them, bridges, they have no insulation. They have the cool air underneath the bridge above the air, so they tend to lose heat even faster. So the surface temperatures on a bridge tend to be much lower and freeze first before normal roadways. And this is important because when you're driving, if anything that's wet, and we start to see those temperatures much cooler on the bridges, that tends to ice over. And if you drive over ice, you may lose control. So it's important to slow down before the bridge because changing speed on ice is dangerous. In fact, freezing isn't also uniform. So it could be a sunny day, but shaded parts of the bridge may be still iced over. So it's important to slow down before you reach the bridges, especially during the wintertime. Matt Bullock, WNBF News.
All right, and the bridge is obviously one of the first things to go. Thankfully for us, if we're going to see any bridge impacts, I think it's going to be in the Midlands, maybe even the PD. It's those small county roads, country roads that I think I would be more concerned with.
Yeah, I have a feeling places like I-95 probably
Yeah.
going to get a little bit of pre-treatment today, just in case. But yeah, as you mentioned, some of those back roads may have some icy spots.
Yeah, for sure. Well, of course, with whether or not, we still have to continue to take you out to the west. Unfortunate situation continues here as tens of thousands of people have fled Los Angeles. The images and photos that continue to come from the wildfires there, they keep popping up, at least in my X timeline and Facebook, and you hear the stories. That Eaton fire has killed at least 5 people so far. The Palisades fire, as of now, started in the backyard and has become the most destructive in the area's history. Santa Monica issues sunset to sunrise curfew in evacuation. That sunsets, you have to be inside, and of course the fire continues. There's been many people saying, hey, we haven't been able to sleep because that fire is so close to their home.
Yeah, just terrifying situations, made even worse. Last night, a new fire broke out in the Hollywood Hills. That one actually got close to threatening the Hollywood sign, the famous Hollywood sign. The sign made it through, but it was burning around there. Additional fires, lots of damage in and around Malibu, all those beautiful oceanfront homes there in Malibu. A lot of those falling victim to the wildfire out there. Weather-wise, the wind will continue to kind of ease up a bit, but we'd love to see a nice storm slam into Southern California with a lot of rain, but notice that is not the case. Any wet weather going to stay up north.
Yeah, all the wet weather basically stayed to the north, and they're dealing with dry, windy conditions. They will deal with the wind shift as we head closer to the weekend, but still going to be dealing with that ongoing wildfire threat. You'll notice temperature-wise, not going to be bad as well. And overall, we're looking at a pretty calm forecast for everywhere else there. Denver, cold, 35 degrees. It's those 60s and 70s, and yeah, the wind that continues to be a problem there in Los Angeles. Even saw this morning, the NFL playoffs begin this week. They're monitoring that situation in case they need to move that game from Los Angeles to Glendale. So we'll keep you posted on that. We'll also keep you posted on tomorrow's First Alert Weather Day.
Yeah, lots of new data coming in today, so we'll continue to kind of fine tune and narrow down those areas that we're going to see impacts around here. Make sure you have that First Alert Weather app, and we're going to do this again tomorrow. A little bit earlier, though, and we're also going to take a little more deep dive locally as to what's going on winter weather-wise here across our area in the Carolinas coming up on tomorrow's show.
Yeah, we'll see you tomorrow afternoon. We'll call it a forecast discussion.
I love it.
I can't wait. We'll see you tomorrow for your Friday edition, and of course, show you where the winter weather is happening.